Hey guys, this is Solution PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading An Overdue Reunion by Inkwell 1013. The summary is, after going missing for 2 months, Jason finally returned to the Park Row Public Library with his foster father in tow. Nancy is just relieved to know that he's okay. Jason really wants to get his first library card. Alright guys, and without further ado, let's hop right in. It had been 2 months since Nancy last saw Jason, and she had been attempting to reconcile with the boy's near-certain death for almost half of that time. For almost 3 years, Jason had been coming to the Park Row Public Library on a semi-regular basis, and Nancy had grown rather fond of the kid. He'd been nervous when he first came, but relaxed once assured that he wouldn't get in trouble for using the public library services without a library card. Nancy had offered to sign him up for one, but when told that he'd need an adult to sign the form for him, Jason politely declined. Nancy was understanding. Jason wasn't the first orphan child she had come across since she moved to Gotham. Since he didn't have a library card, Jason wasn't able to take any books home, if he even had a home. But Jason would still spend long hours at the library, curled up in the children's section with whatever classic he was working through. Nancy knew that the other librarians were fond of Jason too. Javier had liked Jason ever since he realized that the kid could speak Spanish. They would spend hours swapping recommendations of Spanish literature. When Javier had asked who had taught Jason Spanish, Jason told him that his mama had taught him. But he closed down when Javier asked to meet her. Jason had gone into Mandy's good books after he befriended her daughter, Hannah, who usually did her homework in the library while her mom finished up her shift. Jason never seemed to have any homework on him, though. He probably wasn't even enrolled in school, considering how he always seemed to be lingering in the library during school hours. Still, he was whip-smart and loved learning enough to make up for his lack of a traditional education. The reason for Nancy's fondness was even simpler than Javier's and Mandy's. Jason looked exactly like her brother Mark when he was 13. Right down to his bright blue and tousled messy hair. She couldn't help getting attached. Now Jason was probably dead, and they couldn't even call the police because they didn't know his full name or his address, if he even had one, or anything about him that could be used to help find him. God, it fucking killed her. As the weeks passed and Jason's death became more and more certain in Nancy's mind, she found herself calling Mark more, just to hear his voice. Mark was 21 now, but sometimes she still thought of him as her kid brother. It came with the territory of being a big sister, she supposed. Nancy knew that Javier had started calling his younger sisters during his breaks too, just to check on them. Mandy had been extra careful about letting Hannah take the bus on her own since Jason went missing. Then on a perfectly ordinary Saturday, Jason came back. Nancy almost hadn't recognized the kid. The Jason they knew had been a scrappy, hungry street kid who had worn the same ratty red hoodie every day, taped up the holes in his shoes with duct tape, and could never quite get his hair cleaned at the library's bathroom sink. The kid in front of her looked so different that Nancy assumed her knee-jerk reaction to seeing him must have been a mistake. Maybe this was just some random kid who looked like Jason, the same way that Jason looked like Mark. Maybe it was just a coincidence that they had the same eyes, the same tanned skin, the same cheekbones. Nancy had almost convinced herself. Then the kid smiled up at her, showing all his teeth the way Jason always did, and softly said, "Hi, Miss Nancy. I know it's been a while." And Nancy couldn't deny it anymore. This was Jason. He was alive. He was here. "You came back," Nancy said. "I was so sure you were gone forever. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to dip on all of you like that. What happened?" "I sorta got a new foster dad," Jason said, almost sheepishly, cocking his head towards the other side of the library where an unassuming, dark-haired man was browsing the psychology section. "It's been a rough couple of weeks getting all that sorted, so I couldn't come sooner. I would have if I could have, though, I promise. As long as you're safe." Jason gave her another one of his winning smiles. "Yeah. Bee's been taking really good care of me." It did look like Jason was being looked after properly. He was finally wearing new shoes, and his hair was clean and brushed, even if it was still a little messy. More than that, he seemed genuinely relaxed in a way that he never had been before. It was hard to be relaxed when you were constantly looking over your shoulder for another threat. Nancy wanted to thank Jason's new foster father for taking such good care of their Jay. "Any chance I can have a little chat with your new guardian?" she asked, more for her own peace of mind than anything else. If B was sketchy, she'd do her best to get Jason away from him safely. Jason beamed. "Okay. B's been wanting to talk to you guys anyway." Lowering her voice, he added, "I think he wants to give you guys money." It was always a pleasant surprise when they got donations from parents. Even a few dollars here and there could really stack up. Javier had been talking about extending their foreign language section. "That's good to know." "Cool. I'll get B to come over then." Jason walked over to retrieve his foster father, and Nancy found herself wondering what kind of parent he would be. Going by how happy Jason was, Nancy was pretty sure he'd be a good guy. Probably better off if he was going to be donating money. A little shy, maybe, judging by how he sent Jason to speak to Nancy first. Probably. Holy shit, that was Bruce fucking Wayne. What the hell was Bruce Wayne, Prince of Gotham, doing in her library? Was this some sort of PR stunt? More importantly, where was Jason? It took Nancy more than a few seconds to realize that Jason was taking Bruce Wayne over to her desk by the arm. Wait, was Jason's foster father Bruce Wayne? Nancy's head was still spinning as Jason finished hauling Bruce over to her desk. For a man richer than Croesus, Bruce carried himself as if he was faintly terrified by everyone around him. He managed to mumble his way through donating $100,000 to the library, with promises of more whenever they needed it, looking like he wanted the conversation to be over the whole time. It looked like Javier was getting his expanded foreign languages section. Is there anything you need, Mr. Wayne? Bruce flailed for a moment before covertly glancing down at Jason. J-Lad? He even had a nickname for Jay, sweet lord. I want a library card. A library card, Bruce echoed. Did you not have one already? No, they needed an adult to sign the form and a home address, and I didn't have either of those. Jason explained. But now I've got both, so I want a library card. They're not just for books, you know. You can use the computers and print stuff and rent CDs and DVDs. Oh, and they even have classes and stuff sometimes. Someone had clearly memorized their services from their website. You don't have to convince me, J-Lad, Bruce said, reaching down a hand to ruffle his hair. If you want a library card, you can have one. Nancy walked Bruce and Jason through the process of signing up for a library card. People were encouraged to make a small donation to cover the cost of the card, though it was not a requirement, and Bruce fished out a $100 bill, dropping it into the donation box on the desk. Jason was presented with his brand new library card, and grinned up at Nancy like he was holding pure gold in his hands. Thank you, Miss Nancy. You're so welcome, Jay. Watching Jason drag Bruce around the library, Nancy's heart was filled with that same familiar fondness. And if Javier found her crying in the staff break room, that was entirely her business. Alright guys, and that's the end of an Overdue reunion by Inkwell 1013. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next video.